Welcome to a demo of Kelvin Collaborative Control Platform. My name is Rohan Vaidyanathan. I'm the head of product here at Kelvin, and I'm going to be taking you through a quick demo of our platform. But before we get into the demo, what is Kelvin? We are enabling the next generation of collaborative control. For any kind of process manufacturing industry, we want to enable sustainable operations that take you eventually towards autonomous operations. And our key goal here is to get carbon under control. So how do you relate emissions to your operations? How do you relate emissions to efficiency? And what actions can you take to reach net zero goals on a timely manner? The Kelvin platform has been battle tested. It's delivered more than 3x ROI across our entire customer base, and it's delivered more than $100 million in operational improvements. It's led to 74% reduction in methane in certain oil and gas facilities that we are deployed in. So there's a lot of powerful capabilities in here which is delivering real business value to our customers. How do we do it? We do it in 4 different steps as the customer adopts our platform. You're able to collaborate across the entire process line. You're able to simulate different scenarios in the production processes and optimize them. And eventually you're able to do control on the particular asset down to an asset and an RTU and a PLC level in order to control the behavior of your equipment. And all of that ties back into the data that we collect from the IT and operations environment, the machine learning models we run on top of that, and any kind of custom algorithms that you want to bring on them. I'm going to be taking you through a demo of our platform to show 3 important parts. 1, how do you visualize and operationalize the entire production process, and think about this from the point of view of a production line manager or an operator and a process control engineer collaborating to operate the production process. Number 2, how do you build and maintain a single source of truth? There is a huge problem in the industry where if something changes on the factory floor, you do not have a good enough record of that so that you can run simulations on that or understand what has really changed and communicate that changes across a team. So I'll show you how you can very easily do that without needing sophisticated tools. And 3, finally, bringing flexibility for your administrators to configure and manage the platform in a really easy way so that you bring the power of the entire platform to whatever you're doing on the process line. So let's jump into the demo. This is the Kelvin Maps UI, as we call it. The Kelvin Maps product is the face of the Kelvin platform. What you're seeing here is a dashboard view of your entire operation. So you can have different process lines located in different facilities across the world. For example, here in Denver, I have 3 chemical process lines. You can think about this as a conglomerate. If you want to visualize your entire operations, you can do it here in one screen. Each of these cards is showing some statistics on how many assets there are in a process, what is the OEE metrics, what kind of alarms you have on them as well. Down below here, you have a similar view of all the assets in our organization. You can filter these assets through a number of different criteria. So I'm going to pick the one that has the most critical alarms. So here I see that extruder 1 on chemicals 01 production line has 4 critical alarms, and this is something that I should pay attention to. So it's an easy way for someone to keep track of all the different types of alarms and metrics that are across different facilities and across different production lines, and which ones are the ones that you should be paying attention to first. Now let's switch to the production overview. This is a different kind of overview where you have a lot more details into each of those production lines. So as you can see here, each of these vertical lanes is a production process. I have a few of them over here, and you can have different kind of metrics showing within each of them. So you can show the current production SKU being worked on in the existing process, the shift name, the team that's working in the current shift, alarms that are being fired off across the different assets in your process line, the important metrics like OEE, as well as recommendations on how to address some of those alarms and metrics. So it's a very comprehensive view of a particular process line. So if you're a production line manager or a operator even, or sometimes a process control engineer who is maintaining multiple different lines, you can see all of these metrics in a single dashboard in a very easy manner. Another thing which is cool about this is, sometimes operators want to have just very minimal information. So you can go and customize the screen for the information that you want to keep on top, and you can even move around these metrics. So it's a very intuitive and easy to use interface, which is also very familiar because all of the icons that you see here for alarms and also the ones that we are going to show you later in the demo, all of them are ISA compliant. They comply with the way symbols should be shown from the ISA standards. They comply in the way that alarms should be shown in the ISA standards. So this really brings a familiarity for your operators, for your production line managers who are used to looking at SCADA and HMI systems, to very quickly get familiar with the Kelvin platform and start getting value out of it from day one. Let's jump into one of these lines. So what you're seeing here is a next level view of the line. It shows you how the process logically looks like. So material is flowing into the silo, it goes into the blender, it goes into a few other assets on the process, and it finally goes into the pack out. For each of these assets, we show you metrics at the bottom over here. And for each of those assets, we also show what are the alarms and what state of alarms they are. So for example, on extruder, we have 4 critical alarms, but on silo, it's just an informational alarm. And once again, you can see a summary view of the OEE indicators at a process line view. So this view, again, is very useful for a production line manager or an operator to see what is going on in the process, what are the different metrics each of these assets are showing, and which alarms I should pay attention to. Now, these OEE indicators are being calculated automatically as the data flows in through the OT network and through bridges into our platform. But in case you have data which is missing, or you have connection that you lost, or you have devices on the edge which do not send information in a timely manner, you can also upload data manually on a per shift, per asset basis, and the Kelvin Maps platform automatically does the OEE calculation for that particular shift. Similarly, if you do not have data coming into your platform for any given reason, or if you want to run some sort of simulation. So for example, you can create a copy of this chemicals 01 line. You do not need to connect it to any network, but you can simply upload some offline diagnosis data in an Excel file, and it's going to go in and hit it against the models, the failure models, the process view of your production process, and generates the right kind of metrics and alarms for you to look at and say what would have happened in that scenario. So once again, it's a very easy and simple way to use in order to visualize your process, in order to visualize what exactly is going on at a given time in order to operate your process in the most efficient manner. Now, let's jump into one of these alarms and look at what kind of information you can get there. So here is a overview of all the alarms under chemicals 01 line. If you click into one of these alarms, you can see a number of different details over here. So we show the failure modes, we show possible failure reason, and we also show you recommended actions. Now, what is this alarm? This alarm is a vibration anomaly on the extruder, and this was generated by a failure detection model that is part of the Kelvin platform by default. This model has been trained on 25 to 30 years of failure data across a number of different asset classes and components in the process manufacturing space. So it's a rich set of data that is leading to the model's prediction, and it very accurately identifies what kind of failure modes you have and what would you do in order to correct such a failure on a particular process line. From here, as an operator or as a user of the platform, I can go and communicate with my colleagues. So for example, I can go look into this alarm where I pinged my colleague Andre and asked him if you have any guidance on how I can investigate and resolve the alarm, and he pointed me to some people who may be able to help. So not only are you able to get a complete view of the alarm and the reasons for it. You're also able to collaborate and communicate with your team from within the platform and from within the alarm itself so that you do not lose context of what you're doing. So once again, we are enabling a complete process mapping. We are enabling you to see the right kind of metrics, and we are enabling you to collaborate with your teammates in order to resolve issues and make sure that the process is operating in the most efficient manner. Just to summarize, I've shown you how to look at a particular process line. I've shown you how to look at a summary overview of your entire enterprise, and I've shown you also how to look at a specific process line and what you can do with the alarms. Now the fun doesn't stop there. When you have an alarm and when you have received some information about a particular asset, you may want to go and investigate more data about that asset. And you may want to go in and make a control change on that particular asset so that you change the behavior of that equipment. Maybe you are going to reduce some speed, or maybe you're going to change some kind of humidity settings around in that equipment, and so on. So let's look at what happens when you want to do such actions. What are the options available in the platform? Let's enter one such asset over here. So this is the next level view of an asset once you click into it from a process line view. Here you can see we have a 3D rendering of it. You can click on pin on that particular component on an asset, and you can see the metrics associated with it. So for example, here you are seeing a vibration sensor on a centrifugal pump, and it is showing you a bunch of different metrics. You can also sort of have a 3D view of it, rotate and see which other components are showing alarms and what is the metrics that is being shown on a particular component over there. Now, you may want to look at the data associated with these alarms, with these anomalies that are being caused, and say, what is the kind of action that I want to take, and what are the kind of information that I want to get before I make some kind of control change on it. So here we have more information in terms of which kind of fatigue was caused by what kind of action on a particular component inside the asset. So as you can see, there's a lot more detailed information being provided, a lot more detailed analysis being provided in order for you to take any action on that. Here is another view of an analysis. This is basically a fast Fourier transform of the vibration analysis on a piezo sensor. As you can see, it is being done at a 1x RPM. So not only are you being told that there is a vibration anomaly, you are also able to see which component exactly is that vibration anomaly on. You're also able to go in at the next level and see a fast Fourier transform of that vibration analysis, and based on that, now you may want to make a decision. Another interesting view of how you can look at data in a more detailed manner is the data viewer. So the data viewer allows you to load metrics from multiple asset components and multiple metrics at the same time. What's the benefit of this? If you want to correlate or want to hypothesize about some particular behavior that you're seeing across different sensors, across different equipment, you're able to see that in one single view. I showed you a graph analysis in a previous view over here, but the data viewer allows you to go much deeper. Here you can actually zoom into a particular time duration. You can get more granular information on a particular metric. You can load normalized data, for example. You can reset the zoom levels. You can load data across different time frames. So a lot of different options over here for an expert, like a reliability expert or a maintenance expert, or even an operator of an equipment, to go in and analyze the data and get the precise information before you are able to go and do a control change. Now, we looked at the alarms, we looked at the asset details, we looked at the data. Now we want to do a control change. Let's go in. This is a view that shows all the asset settings across a particular asset. Some of them are only readable, some of them are writable. Now, if I want to make a control change on a particular metric, let's say that I want to change the humidity metric. From here, I can directly go in and enter a new value. I can enter in, say, for example, I want to set it to 70. I want to give a timeout of 10 seconds before retrying 2 times. And I'm going to submit this control change. If you had to do this on the factory line, you would have to go to a particular equipment's HMI and do this particular action over there. With the Kelvin UI, you're able to do this from a laptop for any asset, for any process, for any plant in your facility, in your enterprise, all from one single screen. So that's the power of being able to do control from the Kelvin collaborative control platform. Now, we talked about how to do control, but you'd be wondering what happened to my previous control operations. So here you can see a history of all the control operations that have been done in the past. You can see that one of them failed. There are a bunch of them pending in the queue that will be implemented. But most importantly, you can also see an audit trail. Who requested the control change? When was it requested? And what was the status of it? So not only are you able to do the control change for all your assets across your facility, across your enterprise from one single screen, you're also able to get a summary view of all the control changes that were made and be sure that you are able to audit it or even learn from it on, when you made a particular control change, what was the impact on it, go back to the data viewer screen, look at more details and so on. That's the power of the Kelvin platform. Now, let me summarize it once again. We looked at a dashboard view. It gives you a complete analysis of, which are the troublesome processes or assets that you need to pay attention to. We looked at a production view to see, which are some of the most important production lines that we should be paying attention to. We looked at details of a production process. We looked into an asset and alarms, and we went in and made a control change finally after reviewing a particular alarms analysis and data, and you were able to make the control change from one single screen for all the assets. That's what Kelvin is delivering in terms of bringing an end-to-end process for visualizing your entire process and making a control change and being able to help you to run your processes efficiently. So now I have shown you how to visualize and operate the entire production process, all the way from visualizing the process to doing control changes on it. Let me show you how to build a single source of truth from the line editor on Kelvin Maps that allows you to map the entire process line. After that, I will also show you how easy it is for administrators to configure and operate the foundation of the platform, and what are the powerful options you have in the platform in order to deploy any kind of third-party applications and models. So let's jump into it. The first thing that I want to show you is the line editor. The line editor allows you to build your process line in a very simple drag and drop canvas. This low-code tool basically allows you to put a symbol on here, which is really being connected to an asset in the back end of the system in the asset hierarchy model, and it allows you to pump in data from the actual equipment to a node which is sitting out your edge, and finally into the data mart in where all these calculations are done. Even if a process line user does not know how to set up those backend and how to make all those connections, they can very easily use that information here in this canvas in order to build their process line view. So it's as simple as sort of, dragging and dropping an asset over here. You can make a connection from, one of these existing assets to the new assets, and you can go and click Save Map. You are not only adding a symbol over here, but you are also able to associate metrics with it. So for example, for this particular beam pump, we have a metric called the beam pump status associated with it. With the oil tank, we have the status of the oil tank and the level of the oil tank, of the material in the oil tank associated with it. So what's the significance of this? The significance is that you are able to choose as a process owner or as a production line manager how you want to represent the logical process and which are the most important metrics that you want to show while representing that logical process. All these symbols over here, they are ISA compliant. We have more than 200 plus symbols, and we are continuously adding a lot more. You would also be able to bring in your own custom symbols if you do not find a symbol in this list in order to draw and represent your entire process. So once you have drawn this process, you can invite other users to come in and review it. They can come and make some additional changes. That's how you enable collaboration across your entire production line. All that is going to be gated by a role-based access control, which says who can come in and edit and who can only view. So that way you also have some sort of audit trail and security for not being able to make the incorrect changes to a process. You can also roll back to a previous version. If you are going to save a map, it's going to give you the previous version that was available to you. And in case you made a mistake or you want to revert back to your previous process, it's very easy to load the previous version from here and go back and forth between the different versions. So it also allows you some amount of version control and the ability to Now let's jump to the final portion of the presentation. You have looked at how to visualize and operate the production line, including making control changes. You have seen how to build a single source of truth and how to collaborate between different team members to get there, and how to build and maintain different versions of a same process line so that you can go back and audit it and have a audit trail for any sort of compliance. Let's look at what are the flexibility options available to the administrators to configure and manage the platform. So let's jump to Kelvin Manager. Kelvin Manager is essentially the place where you have administration capabilities. So there are a lot of things here. I want to show you some important aspects of Kelvin Manager. The first part is how do you build your asset model. The asset model and hierarchy is an intrinsic part of any kind of manufacturing operations data. Here, as you can see, I have mapped the entire Acme Corp hierarchy. So if you remember on Kelvin Maps, I showed you 4 different sites over here, Denver, Houston, Lisbon, and Melbourne. Each of them has different number of production lines, different kinds of businesses. For example, Denver has chemicals, Houston has oil and gas fields. All of those can be replicated over here, and each of the assets and components of those assets can be recorded inside this asset hierarchy. You can do that by hand, or you can very easily import it in a CSV file. We provide a template that you can download, pump in data from there, and you can import data in bulk in order to build your asset hierarchy. The third option is that we have APIs for you to go and connect to a third-party ERP system like SAP or any other place where you're maintaining your asset hierarchy. You can very easily import it in there. Another cool thing that you can do here is build assets from scratch or use assets that we already have in our library. So once again, this asset model is ISA compliant. You can see that it has all the different levels in the hierarchy that you would find in the ISA model. It goes down from assets to components within those assets, parts within those assets, even sensors that you may want to add on an asset. So for example, you can create a new enterprise over here, and we will call it International Manufacturing. It's an enterprise that you have created. Now you want to add a new location in your enterprise. You can very easily do that by adding a site under it, and you can call it, I should drag it under this. So under International Manufacturing, you have a site. You can call it India Ops. And once you have added this site, you can now start adding assets in there. Maybe you have a centrifugal pump in one of these sites. So I can very easily drag and drop a centrifugal pump under this particular site. The cool thing here is it not only brings in that particular centrifugal pump, the asset, but it also brings in all the parts and components under those assets. So for example, you can see that there's a base and foundation, there's jaw coupling, there are parts inside them, there's the AC motor, there's parts inside them. Now, if you want to go in and add a sensor to the AC motor, you can very easily go in and drag and drop something from here. So for example, if I want to add a vibration sensor to the AC motor, it's going to be very easy to go and drag and drop this in here, and I can go and enable failure detection, which in this case is enabled by default, and it's already going to start tracking a number of different properties in your asset that you just added. It's also going to show you a number of validations in your data that you may have to perform. So for example, it is throwing me errors to say that I need to correct the display names and make sure that the failure classes are activated across different hierarchies. So it's a very intuitive system which not only allows you to add and build your asset hierarchy from scratch, but it also runs these validation steps so that you have the right data and the data quality is maintained in your platform. I'm going to discard these changes for now. The second part that I want to show is how do you run applications. We have a huge amount of data being brought into the platform, but you need to run some applications on that data to make use of that data. So for example, here we have a forecasting simulator on a beam pump, and this application has been deployed on a node. I'll come to the node in a moment, but here you can see that you have different versions of the application. So if you want to roll back or add in a new version and launch that version, you can very easily do that. Within an application, you are able to see the logs of that application, the configuration, any kind of metadata associated with that application on that particular node. Going back to an application, it's very easy to create an app. We have a very powerful SDK. We have links to the documentation from here. So if you have an application developer who's writing this app, it's very simple and straightforward to launch those apps in a packaged Kubernetes container and directly deploy it to a particular node where you want it to run at the edge. Now, what is a node? Let's go check them out. These are several nodes which are linked to Kelvin Manager as the cloud deployment. Each of these nodes can be living out there on the edge. So for example, on this node, we have a beam pump connected to that particular node, which means that out in the oil field, there is instrumentation on a beam pump. All that data is coming to a edge node, which is deployed somewhere near the oil field, near the edge. And the Kelvin application, Dynacard forecasting simulator, is actually running on that node. And you can go look at telemetry on that node. You can go into each of these workloads on that particular node and look at how they are getting data and what they are doing for that particular application. On each of those nodes, we can also build bridges. Bridges are Kelvin's terminology for connectors or adapters to your OT network. So for example, here we have an OPC UA bridge, and you can see that a number of assets are connected to these OPC UA bridge and reading a variety of metrics over here. It's very easy to create and deploy a new bridge. We have pre-built bridges for OPC UA, for MQTT, for ROC, and the Kelvin SDK is really powerful and easy to use for you to create new bridges from scratch. When you configure a new bridge, there is a easy to use wizard. So I'm editing a bridge here, but these are the same steps for configuring a new bridge. You are going to give it some identifiers. You can choose the connection protocol and advanced settings for the protocol. You can select the authentication mechanisms over here. It can be credentials, it can be certificate. We also integrate through SSO to your existing enterprise AD. Once you have made those configurations, now you can actually link which asset and which metric is going to be reported on this particular bridge. If you do not want to do this by hand, there's also a way to do it through a CSV upload through a template that I showed you before. So to summarize, Kelvin Manager has the ability for you to organize your assets in a very intuitive manner, whether you want to do it through a UI or programmatically. You can deploy third-party applications and bring your own machine learning models. When you come in and deploy it with an SDK in Kelvin Manager, it packages up that machine learning model or an application into a Kubernetes container and deploys it at the right node. You can deploy nodes at the edge and manage them. You can deploy bridges or connectors on those nodes which go and connect to your OT network or your equipment out in the field and come and fetch data and provide it to the Kelvin platform. Another aspect, finally, I wanted to show you is that you can configure your platform to receive SMS and email alerts. When I was doing the demos just before here, it sent me a bunch of email alerts. These same alerts can be delivered through SMS as well. So again, it's a very easy to use and easy to configure system, and you can have notifications delivered to you and configured from this same place. To conclude, I showed you how to visualize and operate the process end-to-end, including making control changes, how to build a single source of truth, and how to bring flexibility for admins to configure and manage this platform. We are committed to solving the issues related to net zero goals, bringing carbon under control, and ultimately delivering sustainable operations while still meeting production goals. There's a lot of new cool stuff coming out on the Kelvin platform. So if you want to go check out what we are up to, go visit our website kelvin.ai, connect